Christmas is a chaotic and busy time of year for many people. But for me, I always try and spend some time thinking about what's happened, thinking about the past, thinking about the present, and thinking about the future. You do that on a personal level, but you also do it when you look at your country. And for the past, 7 years, 6, 7 years, many of us have travelled this journey together, trying to protect the UK. Initially, as many people thought, just from a few crazed jihadists that were intent on bringing mayhem to the streets of our country. But as we've woken up to what's really happening in the nation, we discover that there are three enemies of this great United Kingdom. And not the country is one thing, but the people is what makes up the country. And there are three enemies of the United Kingdom. The first one is globalism. The second one is communism. And the third one is Islamism. And what we've discovered as we've travelled this road together for the past 6 or 7 years, that they're working together, those three forces, those three ideologies, those three entities, if you like, they're working together to destroy the United Kingdom as a nation state. Brexit put the whole idea of the United Kingdom as a nation state back on the table, because our leaders, the political elite, are part of this. The political elite, to a great extent, are globalists. They don't really care about the United Kingdom, and they don't care at all about the people of the United Kingdom. When I'm talking about the people of the United Kingdom, I'm talking about British people, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, English, the people that have been here for centuries. I'm not discriminating against people that have come in more recently. And anyone that knows me knows this. If people come to this country, they integrate, they love our nation in exactly the same way that we do. If they're patriotic, join the military, join the police, serve the country, then as far as I'm concerned, they're as British as the next man, and they have every right to come here, work here, and help this country prosper and become good British citizens. I'm not talking about those people, because this isn't about colour or race. This is about what you believe. And there are people right the way throughout this nation who despise this country. Some of them are British people who can trace their lineage back centuries, but they despise the country that gave them everything that they have. Some of them are children of migrants. Parents came here, became proud Brits, suffered racism, had to work really hard to make a good future for their children. And now their children and grandchildren are despising the country and the heritage that was given to them by their parents. And then, of course, some of them hate this country for religious reasons. And that's what I really want to think about today. There is a sizable number of people in this country that want Sharia law. In other words, they want Islamic law instituted in this country in its entirety. Now, some people say it's as high as 40%. Depends on what polling data you look at. But I believe in 2015-16, when Trevor Phillips did his documentary about Islam in the UK, that it was around 40% of British Muslims wanted Sharia law in the UK. And you see, this is where there's a problem. Because at its very core, very core, now, even if you're an atheist in this country, at your very core, your morality comes from the Judeo-Christian heritage of this country, from the Old Testament and the New Testament. All our morality, all our laws are built on that. Don't buy into the nonsense that we're some sort of Greco-Roman throwback. Everything in our country, in our legal system, at one time or another, has been based on Christianity, and of course that's waning now and getting weaker and weaker. So when a proportion of the population decide that they want to adopt a different set of values and a different set of laws, that is hugely problematic. And that's what I want us to think about. The biggest threat to the United Kingdom is not from some crazy man strapping a suicide vest to his chest and blowing himself up in a pop concert, or some lunatic stabbing a police officer, or some other lunatic running through Borough Market, stabbing people and cutting women's throats. That's not the biggest threat to the United Kingdom. The biggest threat to the United Kingdom comes from the three powers that I mentioned, from Islamism, globalism, and communism. Because people that believe and buy into these ideologies have a disproportionate amount of influence in the country compared with their numbers. Even at the wildest overestimation, when it comes to Islam in the UK, the wildest overestimation would be 10 to 15 million. It could be that high. We don't know, because obviously there's a lot of undocumented people in the country that we know absolutely nothing about. Conservative estimates put 3, 4, 5 million. But my guess is it's nearer 10 million. Again, these are very, very subjective things. There's no hard facts on how many people in the United Kingdom now are Muslim. But if 40% of them believe in Sharia law, that's up to 4 million people that want Sharia law for the United Kingdom. Then if you look at the people that support violence to achieve those aims, and again, somewhere between 7 and 10%, depending on what polls you're looking at. If it's 10%, it's 1 million people. Now, but that's not the threat. The threat is the ballot box. The threat is demographics. The threat is mass migration. The threat is Islamists. And when I'm talking about Islamists, I'm talking about people that want Sharia law for the United Kingdom. In other words, they want to change our country from a liberal democracy based loosely around Christian values and democracy into part of a caliphate, a global Islamic entity. That's what Islamism means, political Islam. And again, if 40% of Muslims believe that, there's a massive problem. And when we look at the denominations within Islam, and again, I'm going from memory here, so forgive me if I get some of these wrong. As far as I remember, it's over 40% of the mosques in the UK. I think it's 42 or 43%. The mosques in the UK are Deobandi. Deobandi is the sect that gave birth to the Taliban. Then I think there's about another 9% are Salafist. So that's over 50% of mosques in the UK are run by what we would consider by any stretch of the imagination to be extremists. Salafists, of course, gave birth to ISIS. And then there's also these organisations under the radar. In fact, no, let me go back to the mosques. And then the Barelvi Muslims were thought to be the moderate Muslims. They were thought to be the ones that they were the bulwark against the Deobandis and the Salafists. But it turns out that they're getting radicalised. And the big thing with the Barelvi is their absolute adoration for Muhammad. And as we know, Barelvi Muslims, extremist Barelvi Muslims, have murdered in the UK because they've perceived that their prophet, well, the one that they call a prophet, I don't call him a prophet, that Muhammad has been insulted. There was a famous case, I think it was Glasgow, Edinburgh, where a man drove from Bradford and murdered a shopkeeper who was an Ahmadiyya because he, in this man's perception, he'd insulted Muhammad. So that's somewhere in the region of about 70% of mosques in the UK have potential for radicalisation and extremism. And you've got to ask yourself, how many Muslims are going to the mosque on a weekly basis? So there is a massive, massive threat from political Islam, Islamism, from radical Islam. And then we look at the organisations like the Muslim Brotherhood, very, very influential organisation that's been linked to Al Qaeda. Hamas is the branch of the Muslim Brotherhood in the Gaza Strip. Countless other terrorist organisations. I think, as far as I remember, the Muslim Brotherhood assassinated President Sadat in 1980 or 1981 in Egypt. They've been involved in all sorts of terrorism. When the Muslim Brotherhood took over Egypt, things got so bad that the military had to step in and boot them out of power. So the Muslim Brotherhood are active in the United Kingdom. They seem to be behind these pro-Hamas marches. So there's a massive problem. Putting aside terrorism, putting aside the violence, there's a massive problem with sectarian political Islam. And of course, political Islam and Sharia law is completely opposed to modern Western values. It's sectarian, it's supremacist. They treat women like second-class citizens. Sharia law treats women like second-class citizens. We could go on and on and on, but obviously I'm well aware of time. So what do we do about this? Because as the demographics change and grow, we already know that the Labour Party is massively compromised by this. I think it's about 70% of Muslims vote Labour, because the Labour Party promotes their values to a great extent, at the same time as promoting transgenderism, globalism and all the other stuff, all the other left-wing, globalist, communist claptrap that the Labour Party pushes out. I remember someone saying that Labour Party is considered to be a centre-left party. I don't think there is such a thing as a centre-left party. I think all the parties are left-wing, and the Labour Party is extremely left-wing, because the people that were in there under Corbyn are still there. It's just Corbyn's not there. They still have the same ideas and the same ideology. And there's this unhealthy alliance between these people that have swallowed the diversity Bible and Islamists within the Labour Party. And that's a tension. And the Islamists are flexing their muscles at the minute. And it'd be interesting to see what happens. And I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. In the new year, when a Labour government comes to power, they are going to push the all-party House of Commons definition of Islamophobia, which will criminalise criticism of Islam, criminalise criticism of what they call Muslimness. What on earth is Muslimness? What does that even mean? It wasn't even a word until they made it up. It basically means anything about Islam. If you criticise it, your neck's going to be an illegal noose, and you're going to have the local Stasi or the local religious police smashing your door in and dragging you off. I was talking to a man yesterday that got into an argument with some Turkish barbers in the town where I live, and it got quite heated. And he told them basically where to go. I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but you can imagine. And it wasn't, just stay where you are and destroy my business. He didn't want them here. He told them that in an exchange on, I think it was Facebook. He was arrested while he was at work in his barbershop. He was arrested. He was dragged before the courts. He got 200 hours community service and a three-year suspended sentence for an argument online with people that were in competition with his business because he actually mentioned their ethnicity and their religion. What do we do with that? That's happening now, not when they have more power and influence. So these are extremely dangerous days. And as I look down the road, I see this only getting worse and worse. Somebody sent me a post from Twitter with a man being interviewed where he's talking about Islamic influence in prison. Then there's another one where a man's talking about the horrendous future that Western Europe is going to face because of Islamism, because of radical political Islam. And this is meant to be a Christmas message, and it's meant to be, people are thinking this is a sort of happy time of year. Believe you me, there's not much to be happy about. When we started this 6 or 7 years ago, I was an idealist. I thought we could have a political option where we could have we could get involved in politics. And we very nearly did it with UKIP if Farage hadn't have sabotaged what was a very, very noble and right mission to turn UKIP into a party that was going to stand up to this takeover of the United Kingdom. And Farage, from my point of view, don't trust him. What was he doing when the country was facing hundreds of thousands of people marching through our streets, chanting for jihad. Nigel Farage was sitting in the jungle eating kangaroo penises while his country was on the verge of burning. Not what I call leadership. Don't think Winston Churchill would have done that, Nigel. Don't trust you, never have, never will. That's another story. So, what do we do? And the truthful answer is, as I sit here at the minute, all we can do at the minute is keep doing what we're doing. Keep making videos, keep talking to people, keep explaining to people the very real danger that the United Kingdom's under. As time goes on with the instant harms legislation, and like I say, the Islamophobia bill, which I believe will be before Parliament or part of a Labour Party package to clamp down on free speech or criticism of things that they don't like being criticised, it will be very difficult to speak. So what we need to do is we need to build networks of people who we can wake up or who are already woken up and talk to them and mobilise the British people, almost like an underground movement. I'm not talking about doing anything illegal. I'm talking about a movement where people discuss these issues, where they have meetings and they sit down together and they're made aware of what the threat to the United Kingdom is, from Islamism, from globalism, and from communism. Those three great threats, that massive dark mass of evil that is enveloping our country. People need to be made aware of that. So we need to organise on the ground. Can we have a political voice? Who knows? Who knows? With demographics, we're in big trouble. We are in big trouble. Demographics and mass, I don't even want to call it immigration, just importing masses and masses and masses of people that totally fundamentally disagree with what we believe in. And if you notice that I'm not actually using the words to describe the religion that would most describe it. Because with YouTube and the censorship of big tech, they're making it very, very difficult for us to speak. Apart from possibly X, I don't really know what's happening at Twitter. I don't really know who calls the shots on what goes up and what doesn't go up. But certainly YouTube, Facebook, you do not have free speech. You can't say what you want to say. All you can do is post pretty pictures of cats and say have very, very benign conversations and debates on Facebook and pretend that you're being radical and edgy. Same as on YouTube. It's a nonsense. Free speech has been killed in the West by these tyrants that run these big tech companies. Anyway, that's it. We need to start organising at grassroots level, on the ground, talking about these things. And again, also, and I've always been very passionate about this, oppose the genuine far right, the Nazi types. We all know who I'm talking about. People that call themselves patriotic but aren't. They're a total alternative to patriotism. We must disavow these people and make sure that they never get anywhere either. But we're in a very, very dark place as a country. And I'm sorry I'm not sitting here with good news, because there isn't any good news. It's going to be a hard slog and a hard battle to win back our nation. But for the sake of our children, our grandchildren, anybody who's over 30, this should be the battle of your life. I get it when people are in their 20s, they don't get it, they don't care, most of them. But if you're over 30 and you've got a family, this should be the battle of your life to save the United Kingdom, to push back against Islamism, communism and globalism, and to make the United Kingdom great again. Brilliant slogan by Donald Trump, that. Make America great again, make the UK great again, make Britain great again. All those things. And hopefully next year will be a good year for people that love the country, for people that love freedom, for people that hate and despise totalitarianism. That's what we've always been about from the beginning. We've always been about freedom. Keep fighting for freedom. Stay safe, stay free.